Hello everyone, Simon Jacobson here, and welcome to another episode of Meaningful Live. To talk about a topic that is as hot as it gets, and the portending a new future as has been announced and being heralded. So the topic is Chat GPT a sign that something bigger is coming? Will machines replace us? This program is dedicated in honor of Mrs. Dina Gorkin, who affects positive and meaningful change in her students and staff, and in merit of Shidduch Chayemushka Bas Chana. Okay, my friends. So all the rage now about Chat GPT, artificial intelligence, where is it headed? What kind of revolution is it going to create? How is it going to impact the human race? The very way we acquire knowledge, we understand knowledge, human understanding. I mean, every big issue is on the table. And of course, the big question about the future of machines pitted against humans. We know machines now can beat any human being at chess. That's just a game. But what about when it really develops into something far bigger and far greater? What will be our role when machines can do everything we do faster, quicker, and intuit more because it's just simply of their cumulative power, including even our imagination that is being so-called transferred into these machines. So let's tackle the topic. I just noticed over the weekend at least 5 articles that I saw in major newspapers and magazines just on this topic, and probably many more that I didn't see, and covering so many different angles about it. So let's begin from the beginning. Accumulation of knowledge in general. We all know it is the human being that has the superior brain on earth, meaning when you contrast it to animals or other species, we're the most intelligent creatures. In turn, we've created technologies that improve our lives, that speed up things, whether it's in the creation of the wheel, or the creation of simple process of mathematics, and other ways to make life more efficient, to be able to achieve the same results in a quicker time. The Industrial Revolution, following the Agricultural Revolution, did all of that. Not perhaps at the speeds that we see today, but the concept was there. Can you take the same hour that you invest spending working hard on a farm? Can you create a technology that will replace you so you don't have to work as hard and you can produce even more in that limited amount of time? It's a famous talk that Admiral Hyman Rickover gave in 1956, I believe, or 57, where he compared the 100 years from 1857 to 1957 and basically came away with a very interesting insight that 95% of energy generated in 1857 was generated through humans or animals. In 1957, 95% of energy is being generated by machines or fossil fuels. So what simply happened was, first of all, an explosion of skyrocketing wealth, because those now that control those machines can produce so much more and only exponentially growing, as well as a tremendous amount of free time. Because if you don't have to spend 9 hours sweating on a farm to produce a bushel of wheat or potatoes, because you have machines doing that, so what are you doing with your time? Now that's 1957. That turned the clock forward to 2023, and all these technologies have only exponentially grown, so we have both even more wealth and even more time. So what has happened to the human being as we use the machine to replace us? Interesting question. Just posing that as we go into this. Now let's talk about the accumulation of knowledge. We all know, as I said, human beings have used their minds and have grown, and we have evolved, and we have built a better world. We've built better machines, easier lifestyle, better homes, better vehicles, as we see today in our modern society. Better medicines. I mean, the list goes on in literally every field. With the advent of the printing press in the 15th century, knowledge then, of course, accumulated in whole new ways. We could replicate it. What one person wrote or thought in one corner of the earth could now be reproduced and shared by so many more. So now came a new element of accumulative knowledge, that I can read what you wrote, and it's published and it's replicated many, many times over. So that disseminated knowledge and information in new ways, many say, that was the birth of the Enlightenment, essentially, because now thinkers could compare notes. It wasn't just based on limited, myopic perspectives from a particular city or town, but now the world could really share with each other. We didn't have the technologies of today, of communications, but the printing press created books. And books gathered knowledge and began to disseminate knowledge, and what they call the world of free thinking began. And in many ways, coupled together with the corruption of religion and other forces that dominated and controlled how people thought, including monarchs and despots and tyrants and the church, or whoever it may be. So both these elements together served to create new ways of thinking and the courage to think. And that only accelerated. With the advent of the computer revolution, and I'm jumping forward pretty quickly, moving through the agricultural, industrial revolution, the computer revolution, or what we call the information age. So now what happened was, not only was information and knowledge being replicated and shared, but it's also being crunched in a completely new, unprecedented way. Just take the simple calculator. A calculator, when you had to multiply, let's say 3.4 trillion with 300 billion, 100 million, 200,000 and 45, just to use a random number, times some other large number, it would take you a little while to figure it out. Maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it may be. 1 minute. A calculator crunched the time, able to do it all quickly. That's on a very basic level. The same thing with other technologies, information technology. What it did was take information, and now, instead of just disseminating, it's also crunching that information and bringing it all together to the point that everybody can access anything at any time. Essentially, with the beginning of the web and with search engines and so on, we're able to access information that basically created encyclopedias, became obsolete. You can do all the research you want simply with a few searches and get all kinds of information. Then you have to sift through it and so on. So now with the next generation, what is being called and heralded as ChatGPT, in this classic article that was just published over the weekend by Henry Kissinger, Eric Schmidt, and Daniel Huttenlocher, ChatGPT heralds an intellectual revolution, and they compare it to an unprecedented till the time of the beginning of the Enlightenment. And they, as so many others, ChatGPT, what does GPT stand for? Important to say. Generative, pre-trained, transformer. That's what it is. Most people don't even know that. And it's very apt. It's a very apt definition of what it does. Pre-trained, generative, pre-trained. It's humanly generated. You generate a question, a query, write a book proposal on mathematics and quantum mechanics. And what it will do is it will go and gather all the information it can gather at the speed of a computer and actually produce a full proposal. Articles can be written. Questions can be answered. Taking all the information, and it's collecting it in a way that's unprecedented because no human being has so much information in their brain. And definitely not being able to, within a minute, within even less than a minute, in front of your eyes, produce a whole intelligent offering. It amazes anyone that looks at it because it seems so human. But in fact, if you really think about it, it's completely logical. It's just doing what everything has been done, but now has all gathered it together. So first of all, gathering all information on what you give it. Like if you said quantum mechanics and vegetation, it would look for vegetation. It's basing on the words that you are generating. It's pre-trained because this system is not in any way creating anything new. But what is new is the ability to gather it all together. And that's why called transformer, they call it. Meaning it's transforming it into a document or an answer or a response that every one of us can use. And it's interesting. It's not just cutting and pasting. So it also has that intelligence of being able to combine so many different factors. And this, of course, opens up our imagination. What is it capable of doing, especially as this continues to be refined, more information being fed into it? It could essentially replace all our thank you letters, all our papers, all our articles, even our creativity, which is quite amazing because no one ever thought this is what would happen immediately. Everyone knew that robots and artificial intelligence would be able to replace some of our mechanical stuff. But here it's replacing creativity. And it began as simply as if you remember when you type in something, it was like autofill, essentially finishing a sentence. And then you could choose to accept it or not. But this has gone more than just finishing a sentence. It's gone to actually gathering all the information in the world that's possibly accessible and turning it into an intelligent structure. And if you give it more variables, I, for example, typed in something about a proposal I was thinking of writing with my name. I saw right away it was picking up things that I had written, an article here, a thought here, a video here. And it was pretty accurate. But again, if you think about it, it wasn't a creation out of nowhere. You give it enough information. The more you feed it, the better it is. So let's say that this technology will replace, ultimately, most of what we are able to do, this automated. So where does it leave us, the human beings? I go back to the question from the Rickover talk that he gave. What happens with us when things that a machine can replace, and better than we can do? Now, of course, you have the nightmare scenarios of the Matrix or others where machines go to war against human beings and consider us obsolete. I mean, even in Star Trek or other science fiction films that talk about that type of idea. There's another case scenario is the opposite, that the machines will enhance life. And it could be perhaps a combination of both. And what about the bad players out there? The ones that want to manipulate it. And they're already manipulating it. I'm not even getting into commercial interests and subjective interests and the power that it can yield and wield. So many, many questions, far more than we can cover in the scope of this short conversation. But I want to touch upon some key points that I haven't seen anyone else make mention of. Because what it really comes down to is what defines a human being. What defines intelligence? What defines knowledge? That's really what it comes down to. I noticed some have written that this, basically the Age of Enlightenment, essentially eliminated the whole superstition of faith. Faith was the main place that people turned to for understanding natural phenomena like earthquakes and volcanoes as a divine punishment or whatever it may be. Free inquiry opened up our minds to see that there's a nature, there's science, and in many ways science versus religion. And yet religion continues to thrive, which tells you something. It's not because people are just closed-minded and stupid. Maybe there's something that faith delivers that knowledge simply cannot. So what is knowledge? And what is the human being? And I think the name, actually, the GPT, ChatGPT, is very powerful here. And I applaud them for using a term like that. They did not call it just artificial intelligence or virtual reality. And some have already pointed out that artificial intelligence and virtual reality are an oxymoron. It's like Walter Matthau said, look at my couch. It's real imitation leather. Real imitation leather. So they use exactly GPT, which is generative, pre-trained transmitter. And that tells you a lot, because what it's doing is, remember, I don't know if they still use the term, but when it came to computing, I remember in the early years of the internet, they used to call it junk in, junk out. You put junk in, you get it amplified and accelerated in a far more powerful way, but it's still junk. It just got more junk. If you put good stuff in, so the computer will take and amplify the good. So really, it comes down to this, that machines don't have a soul. Now, but who says they cannot be taught what a soul is like? And everything that a soul aspires to? Can they actually replace the soul? The body, you have no doubt that they can replace. And they're already talking about, we already have artificial organs and artificial limbs and so on. But what about the soul, and what is the soul? And I'm not talking necessarily from a religious perspective here. Just talking what is the essence of human beings. So as long as we didn't have machines, We had no choice but to work in the fields and use most of our time simply to toil, and including with our minds, because we had to use it to simply be able to survive and thrive and grow and so on. But if we have machines that can replace that, so we're left with now either to come down to our lowest common denominator and just do nothing. Sit around and say, hey, the machines are doing it all for me. Or to rise to the occasion and be what we're truly meant to be. Because at the end of the day, any machine, even though they may do much better than we can and can accumulate all the knowledge, but ultimately there is a creator. And the creator is the human being. Which, interesting, can be compared also to God. A famous story where the scientist says to God, we don't need you anymore. We have it all figured out. Our technologies have replaced anything you could do. And God said, let me see. And the scientist takes a pile of earth and puts it in his lab. And he says, I'm going to show you. I will now make this earth sprout and it will produce vegetation. So God says to him, 1 second here. Use your own earth. Using my earth. And now you can replicate what I did. So it's important to put all this into that context. And here's what I would like to say about it all. That this can be the opportunity of, yes, a completely new frontier. But not just a new frontier. We're all excited about what it's going to do. It can write me a thank you letter. It can write a personal note. It can write a book. It can write articles. I'm not getting down to the ethical parts of it. Let's just talk that it can do it all. So it's very exciting. And especially, it's not just a matter of quantity, it's also quality. It really has qualitative power because knowledge is not just quantity. When you put the right amount of knowledge together and you inform it correctly, it can come away with completely new creative approaches to things. Let's say all that is a given. That's what everyone's excited about. I was thinking, let's say that's all taken care of. It takes care of most of our needs to convey or even create or conceive of ideas and knowledge and structures and so on. Mathematical equations, coding, programming, whatever you wish. So what then happens to the human being? The human being is left to now discover and identify what we truly are made of. And what are we truly made of? We have something that no machine could ever do. And that is things that are called transcendent. And I mean transcend even what we feed the machines. Even if we feed transcendence into the machines and love and all those higher spiritual values that we have, the machine is still going to do the best is take whatever you put in there. And if it's junk, it's going to be junk. If it's corrupt, it's going to be corrupt, more corrupt. However, there's a whole other dimension, and that is, who are we? And here I want to introduce to you the concept of what is knowledge. The Kabbalists, the mystics, explain knowledge is not about knowing things. It's not even about understanding things. Everyone talks a lot about knowledge and understanding, that the machines can they have knowledge, but they don't have an understanding. I would argue they could even have an understanding. Enough knowledge brings understanding. And remember, it's our understanding that the machines are all absorbing. So now, but knowledge and understanding is not the end of the story. The true mind is meant to experience a reality greater than ourselves. Keep that in mind. The true mind is not just to get knowledge and information, but to experience a reality greater than ourselves. That is the essence of our species. And that's what a human being has unique. And even if we create all the machines that can help us doing that, it is still us that is in the center of experience a reality greater than ourselves, including greater than the machines that experience that reality higher than ourselves. In other words, transcendence, and then transcendence of transcendence, and transcendence of transcendence of transcendence. So if you look at the mystics, how they describe the future of the universe, they describe a universe that will have a seamless flow. We will have everything ready for us. As a matter of fact, one of the expressions is, the lights will fill the earth, meaning we'll have everything we need physically, knowledge-wise, and so on. But what will be lacking, and that will be the most important thing that we have to contribute once the material resistance or the material challenges are gone, is to grow on a transcendent level, deeper and higher, and there's no limit to that. And by all means, use machines to help you with that. Today, I'm sitting right now and I'm broadcasting this idea to you. I'm using a machine. Is distributing a message that will reach far more people than I could ever reach just with my mouth or by simpler technologies. But what am I reaching with? A message that's coming uniquely from me. And the same thing with you. And each of us has in our soul these infinite reservoirs of power. And as a matter of fact, in thinking all about all this, I should say, I'm sure that a machine would have corrected that. I realized a statement that Isaiah says in the prophet, famous statement. He says there will be no longer destruction and there will no longer be evil and destruction in the world. Why? Because the world will be filled with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. Always thought about that. This is the time of Isaiah, talking about thousands of years ago. There was no distribution in that scale at all. It wasn't even in science fiction. And yet he said a world that will be filled with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. When you think about the information revolution, that's how it's described. Knowledge that fills the entire world today. And you can access any piece of information, anytime, anywhere, any person. But he adds one more word, divine knowledge. Not just knowledge. Machines can crunch the knowledge and information. And it brought to mind, if I can be irreverent, Oscar Wilde's great line, where he said, people think that today there's a lower rate of illiteracy. He said that's not true. The difference between the days of old and today and the modern age is that today illiterate people know how to read. Machines, books, printing presses, technologies don't make you into a literate person. They just give you the power. It's like you have a lot of information on your hands. Because the key to everything comes down to is not knowledge and information alone and data. It's experiencing a reality greater than ourselves, which some would define as being love, actually. The ability to transcend yourselves and love another. Can a machine learn about that and give you all the information? Absolutely. Can a machine replace a mother cradling her child? Technically speaking, you probably can create robots and clones and whatever will come, androids, that will be able to do that. But I think there's a key element that needs to be remembered, something that's not quite as tangible. You can replicate it all, but it's still replicating the creator, in this case the human, and the human is replicating the creator called God. Now, I'm not making a case for God per se in the religious context. I'm making a case for a higher reality. So it's interesting. Information and knowledge is so powerful. Everyone says that's our superior quality. But that's not overrated. At the end of the day, it's a good computer. Your brain is a good computer. Better than any computer out there. And the ones that are now, artificial AI and artificial intelligence and all the other technologies being developed, are replicating the brain and creating a better version, perhaps. But there's something more about the brain than just knowledge and data. It's about the experience of transcendence. And that, my friends, is the key to the future. And then machines will only help us amplify and help us access that in more powerful ways. Because as I said, the main things, the main functionalities that we're doing today, just like today, you don't have to travel to buy something. You can order it, it'll come to your door. So what are you doing with your time? You can just waste it, junk in, junk out, or you can use it for reaching higher states of consciousness, higher states of awareness, filling the world with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. So it's interesting, at the conclusion of their article, the article I quoted from printed in the Wall Street Journal, they read a very interesting line, which I just want to quote to you, because to me that's like the key. And the line is, just read it, the line is like this. As we become homo technicus, meaning technology takes over, we hold an imperative to define the purpose of our species. It is up to us to provide the real answers. Now, they're neutral. They're not going to get into what that answer is. The purpose of our species and the purpose of knowledge. So as long as knowledge was so-called utilitarian, meaning necessary for survival, that's where knowledge was used. And it still remains so. That's what we study in universities. But much has been talked about and lamented of how children who are naturally creative and natural imagination and natural free abandon, that's all been knocked out of us in the name of what is called elementary school, the name of schooling. Some say associated to Napoleon and Ferdinand the Great, which was all about creating efficient soldiers, efficient people, mathematics, the empirical sciences. What about the arts? What about poetry? What about music? What about love? What about romance? So all that became extracurricular. Yeah, that's what we do on weekends or when we have a little free time. But it's really the essence of who we are. experiencing something greater than yourself. And knowledge should never replace that. Knowledge should lead us to there. So then, hence, machines are there also to help us become more transcendent. If we see ourselves simply as powerful minds, and we can analyze and crunch numbers and make money and be successful, use our minds for survival purposes, even if it's prosperity, then of course our machines are going to just be an extension of that. But if we see ourselves as fundamentally transcendent human beings, filling a world with divine knowledge, transcendent knowledge, spiritual knowledge, higher consciousness, and higher awareness, then it's a whole different story. And that's why that will eliminate destruction and evil and destruction. Because as long as it's just human knowledge, not transcendent knowledge, we can end up using the machines against each other. There are already people feeding it all kinds of false stuff in order to manipulate and maneuver, and you could definitely countries against each other. That's why it will not necessarily bring peace in the world. But if it's divine knowledge, that's what Isaiah is saying, and that fills the world as the waters cover the sea, then it's a whole other story. It's refined, it's humble, it's driven by something greater. It's understanding that all human beings are part of a larger cosmic symphony. We're part of a unraveling drama, and each of us are absolutely necessary and indispensable. And our machines are only here to help enhance that. So I would like to propose that ChatGPT is indeed leading us to the advent, to the beginning, to heralding a new age, a new revolution, after the agricultural and industrial and computer and information revolution, a spiritual revolution. And one that will lead ChatGPT, that generative pre-trained transmitter, let's turn that into OCT, original, creative transmission, not just transmitter, but transmission, that we access that unique part within our inner spirits, the deepest part of all, that defines who you are and what you can change, how you can contribute something that you and only you can contribute, original. C, creative, not just pre-trained, not just generated, not just pre-trained, and ultimately not just transmitting, but not just a transmitter, but not just a transformer, I should say, that you're transforming it, but you're transmitting it, which is the central concept that you find in the Kabbalistic thought, transmitting infinite light into a finite world and transforming it, filling the world with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I hope to speak more about this topic, and it deserves much more, but love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your comments. But that's what we need to understand. Who are we? And that's where the future holds. And I have no doubt that we put our heads together and we realize that our heads lead us and our hearts to a place that's beyond mind and heart, beyond machines, and to a place of total transcendence, a world that will be filled with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. Please share your feedback, your thoughts, your comments. Please share this with others. And let's get the word out there. Let's use all these technologies for indeed that transcendent and spiritual revolution. Simon Jacobson here, meaningfullife.com, where you could check us out for this and many more, a wide array of topics. Please subscribe on our YouTube channel as it's been growing, and hopefully we could do exactly that, fill the world with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. Be blessed and be well. Thank you.